Welcome, 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 everyone. My name is Anthony Howard. I'm the founder and CEO of HR Certified. Welcome to a continuing conversation as it relates to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. This is a continuous conversation around meeting employees where they are, and one particular facet that is interested that everyone is leaning into and its importance not only to employees but into employers is around mental health. Your response has been heard. This is a record-setting event for HR Certified, in which we have had a record number of registrations around it. I said, hey, is it because HR Certified is gaining momentum, or is it around the topic itself, or it could be a little bit of both? But regardless, thank you for taking the time out to join us today. And so before we begin, I wanted to share a little bit about my story, as this is of particular importance to me. And where it really all begins is actually in October of 2021. The picture on the left was me at an employer. My last day at an employer. My employees had celebrated my transition to a new opportunity. And on the picture on the right is a picture of my grandmother. If you know me, you know her. She's the most quintessential person in my life. Without her, I have no idea, where I would be. And I had no idea that the very next day that picture was taken on the left, that my grandmother would suffer an unfortunate medical incident and wind up going into the hospital. And of course, as you know, during this time was in the midst and the height of COVID. Unfortunately, my grandmother did not make it. And so in January of 2022, she passed. This picture is a snapshot of me with a couple of my friends after the funeral. And what I did not know as I look at this picture now was that I was not okay. Actually, in this picture, I weighed a little bit under 100 pounds. And I had set up probably about 5 or 6 interviews when I came back from this funeral, thinking I could just hit the ground floor running. And when I tell you that going through those interviews, I bummed them all. And I was wondering what was happening, what was going on. And I reached back out to those employers and I said, hey, can you give me some feedback? Because I'm like, I work in HR. I know I do interviews. Well, I'm not understanding what's happening. And 2 of them responded to me and they said, Anthony, when you interviewed, you weren't here. Like we weren't really unable to tell, like you weren't able to really articulate, how you add value to the position. It was clear that your mind was somewhere else. And it was from that point that I realized that I needed to really check that I knew that something was wrong. And so this is what I'm showing you now is a graphical representation of my activity on LinkedIn. I'm sure a lot of you are used to seeing my postings on a day-to-day basis, but it wasn't always so. From that time of the time that you saw in that picture, all the way up until this time last year, I was pretty silent on LinkedIn. I was going through my mental health recovery. And the thing I always ask myself, I found my voice. Unfortunately, I was able, this is a full circle moment for me. But the thing that I always asked myself was, if I was employed, whether or not an employer, because I consider myself top talent, that whether or not an employer would truly have been able to accommodate me in the process that I needed to recover and to reconcile during my mental health journey. And I think I would say in general that answer would be no. I share this story with you because of the stigma around mental health. Even though my story may not be exactly yours, either you or someone that's close to you that have maybe even had a mental break. And now in post-COVID era, it's even more prevalent than ever. And that's really the purpose of this session is how do employers meet the employees' needs as it relates to mental health. And so with that, I want to personally say thank you. Thank you for supporting HR Certified. Thank you for supporting our vision of diversity, equity, inclusion in human resources. This event is actually celebrating our 1 year anniversary of doing these types of events on this platform. I will provide you with a link so you can take a look at maybe some of the old events that you hadn't been able to see, and of course for following me. But this is actually a part of my process, and finding my voice, finding my identity, finding my passion, and leaning into my gifts. So again, thank you so much for that, and for participating in this full circle moment. And with that, it is what our vision is as an organization is to increase diversity in corporate HR departments nationwide through organic attraction and upskilling efforts. We believe that a more diverse HR team will create even better workplaces for everybody, which in turn will generate better returns for the business. And in support of that, you may have seen it. If you are in support of diversity, equity, inclusion in HR, actually, I wore it today, is HR Looks Like Me. Our strategic partner with Wanadu has been very instrumental in continuing the conversation. Our pre-order store is open until June 16th. There will be a link provided that you can access and pre-order that, and each contribution with that will help fund scholarships for the underrepresented in HR. And the only thing they need is a shot. So with that, I want to go ahead and introduce to you our panelists. And actually one of the individuals who I reached out to would be able to be here, but actually right now she is at a keynote address. But she wanted to make sure that that she was here, and so she actually did a introduction for us. So while she's introducing herself and how important mental health is, I want you to put in the chat the name of her book, Crazy AF. By doing that, you automatically are entered for a raffle in which we're raffling off some e-copies of her book. We want to know where you are hailing from, why you're here, and then also supporting her in this book. So in the meantime, let me go ahead and introduce to you to Natasha. And thanks, and we got to give her luck for her keynote that's happening as we speak.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited to join my dear friend, Anthony P. Howard, for this online discussion on meeting the mental health needs in the modern workplace. I am thrilled to see so many HR professionals and other mental health advocates who care about workplace mental health joining us today from different organizations from around the world. In case you didn't know who I am, or you don't know who I am Natasha Bowman. I'm a mental health advocate. I'm the president of the Natasha Bowman Consulting Group, one of the co-founders of the Bowman Foundation for Workplace Equity and Mental Wellness, and author of the newly released book, Crazy and Fearless, How to Go from Being Burned Out, Unmotivated, and Unhappy to Reclaiming Your Mental Health at Work. Today, we gather here to address a pressing issue that has garnered significant attention in recent years, the mental health of employees in the modern workplace. As an HR professional and mental health advocates, we play a crucial role in creating and nurturing work environments that prioritize mental well-being and support our employees' mental health needs. And it's an honor to have you all here as we delve into this important conversation. You know, the modern workplace presents a unique set of challenges that can significantly impact the health of our employees. And factors such as increased workloads, constant connectivity, and blurred boundaries between work and personal life have become prevalent in today's fast paced and demanding work environments. And it's our responsibility, especially if you're an HR professional, to recognize these challenges and take proactive steps to addressing them. Today, I'm sure you're going to be addressing many of these challenges and what those proactive steps are. But here are some key actions I'd like you to consider. The first one is to foster a culture of openness and support. So, we want to encourage open dialogue about mental health by creating a safe space where employees feel comfortable sharing their experiences and seeking support. And this includes destigmatizing mental health discussions and providing resources such as employee assistance programs or mental health helplines. We also want to implement mental health training and education. And when we do that, we equip managers and employees with the knowledge and skills needed to support mental well-being in the workplace. So training programs can cover topics such as stress management, resilience building, and recognizing the signs of mental health challenges. And by educating ourselves and our teams, we can create a more informed and empathetic work environment. So, throughout this discussion, I encourage you to actively engage, share your insights, and ask questions, and use this opportunity to learn from each other's experiences, exchange best practices, and explore innovative strategies for meeting the needs, the mental health needs of our respective workplaces. So, thank you once again for being part of this important conversation. Together, let's make a positive difference in the lives of our employees and shape a workplace culture that promotes mental well-being.
How about that, y'all? We are truly honored to have Natasha open us up as it relates to this very important topic, mental health. If y'all felt what she was saying, what I need you to do is share out on these LinkedIn streets right now that they what they are missing, right? Go ahead and share our event on LinkedIn, as well as let us know your thoughts about what she had indicated in the chat. We see you. We have people from all over. We have people from San Francisco, Louisiana, India, Jamaica. We have a global audience here. So absolutely awesome. And so also I want to go ahead and introduce to you our panelists. And they are going to share the stage with me today as we talk about mental health. And so I want to go ahead and go across each of the boxes. You know me. I want to introduce our strategic, also our partner with McLean and Company, and a representative from there, Nella Brown. Hey, Nella, why don't you introduce yourself and your role in today's discussion?
Yes, thank you so much, Anthony. I am so ready to dive into this topic. It is truly vital and crucial. Mental well-being and burnout, it's real. I'm thrilled to be part of this panelist discussion today. As an experienced account manager, I've had the privilege of working closely with HR professionals for about 8 years, and I've seen firsthand the amazing power you have to create a healthier and more productive work environment. So, a little bit about the organization that I work for. It's called McLean and Company. We are a research and advisory firm, and we just don't deal with research and data. We actually offer practical tools and solutions that you can start using right away. So we have turnkey solutions such as our engaging training materials, expert guidance that you can pair up with analysts so they could be your thinking partners, customizable strategic templates, as well as HR policy templates. So we have everything that you need so you can take action. So today, my role and my goal is to equip you with some valuable insights that I pulled from our HR trends report, as well as our organizational burnout research. And so hopefully these nuggets of information will empower you to address mental well-being and tackle burnout head on.
Yeah, look, if you have attended any of our DEIB 2.0 discussions in the past, we start off all over discussions with data. And so McLean and Company has been able to provide that framework in which we can have those discussions. So Nella will be my co-host throughout this discussion. Thanks, Nella.
Thank you,
All
Anthony.
right. All right. Let's go ahead and move along here. Chris Hart, thank you for joining us. Won't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Hi, everyone. I'm so honored to be here, first of all. And so thank you, Anthony, for having me. I'm super excited to dive into this discussion about mental health because mental health is very important for me. I have a background in psychology, industrial organizational psychology, and I've been working in HR for about 10 plus years. Right now, I lead our global benefits at Intuit. And one of the key things that I love to emphasize is mental health. I think mental health is very vital and critical in everyone, in the same way that you would go to your general practitioner, your dentist, and get your monthly cleanings or your annual checkup. You need to do the same thing for your mind. So,
Amen.
Yes, so I'm all for it. I'm a huge advocate, especially with breaking that stigma behind mental health. So I love being here and I'm happy to talk about it. So
if you're leaning into what Chris just said, type in "break the stigma" in the chat. Thank you so much, Chris. Rainer.
Hey, Anthony Howard.
And make sure you put the P in there if you Google me. That's important.
Anthony P. Howard.
There we go.
For the correction. Hey, it's great to be here. I am honored to be able to share my perspectives on this particular topic, which I think is affecting us in so many different ways in 2023. I don't think there could be a more timely, year, if anything, for a topic such as mental health. A little bit about me. My name is Rainer J. Liu, pronouns he, him. And I am an executive coach as well as a senior diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. So I've been in the field of DEI as well as TOD with a little bit of marketing, internal comms, employer branding, things of that nature for the last 10 years. So having worked on different programs, diagnosed different issues in various sorts of systems with individuals, with leaders across the last 10 years, I'm looking forward to contributing what I've got to bring today to this discussion. You might notice my background is today it's coming from deep space. And that's, for me, that's just a first step in acknowledging that, I love work. Honestly, I love the workplace. And also there's something about that space that is a bit constructed. So my role hopefully will be helping us to recognize that we are a certain person at work, but we are whole people. And so that's what I'd really like to do today on this panel.
That's right. Accept me as a whole person. I know that's a lot, but I need y'all to type that in the chat if you get that. Accept me as a whole person. Okay, awesome. So with that, we're going to begin off with the landscape. And so I'm going to have Nella stay with me on the stage as we are kind of going through the landscape of mental health, in particular connected to burnout, which I'm sure all of us can relate to at some form or fashion. So with that, I have you take it away, Nella.
Sure thing. Anthony, if you can take me to the slide where we have the top priorities from the HR trends report.
Get really fast, so that's exactly what just happened there. All right.
That's a good slide, though.
It is a good slide. It is a good slide. Oh, and when I tell you the chat is blowing up with what we're talking about. We just did introductions. I love it. All right. I think this is
Yes, that is a slide. Thank you so much for that. So today I'll be discussing the importance of great employee experience since we are talking about employees and burnout in organizations. But specifically, we're going to be focusing on mental health. So according to the McLean 2023 Trends Report, talent development has emerged as a top priority. As you can see, is in the top two of the six priorities. And we want to focus on creating a positive experience. And so, in order to do that, we must foster a culture of DE&I and develop strong leaders. However, I want to highlight the pressing issue of employee stress and burnout, especially after COVID and remote and hybrid work models. Investing in employee well being benefits both the individual as well as the bottom line. So, as HR professionals, we can actually help be mental advocates and create comprehensive well being programs. So, by prioritizing mental health, we can alleviate stress and burnout, which leads to a more positive employee experience. And it also helps from a professional and personal growth. Remember, our employees drive our organization, and prioritizing their well being cultivates and engages and creates a more productive workforce. Next slide. So, organizations face various factors that contribute to burnout and stress. Blurred work life boundaries and high role expectations are very common challenges. The HR Trends Report highlights the importance of meeting customer demands, shaping culture, and supporting change through effective leadership. Moreover, employees who feel a sense of purpose can combat stress and burnout. Our survey data reveals that 35% of respondents reported high stress levels and 38% experienced burnout. This data emphasizes the need to prioritize mental health. So, by recognizing and addressing burnout and stress factors, we can create a healthier work environment for all. So, let's take some time to talk about the critical aspects of how this can impact both the bottom line and the well being of the employee. It's essential for employers to address burnout and stress as they directly affect retention and just overall health. Organizations must meet employees where they are, focusing on work life balance and the work environment, because mental health plays an important role to this equation. Consider this: 51% of employees would consider leaving their current organization for better burnout and stress support. 51%. Additionally, 63% take sick days due to burnout. Another insight is employees who manage their stress levels well are 3.7 times more likely to be engaged, while those struggling with stress have reduced performance and productivity. Burnout's impact extends beyond just work. It really does affect the physical and mental well being of the individual. It can lead to physical symptoms and mental health challenges that can even include substance abuse and being withdrawn socially. Research shows that it even has a higher risk of heart attacks, strokes, and sometimes can even lead to suicide if the individual is constantly working long hours. So, to me, it is clear that prioritizing employee well being is crucial. And so, HR and people leaders should manage burnout and stress because it does affect the bottom line. And if you do invest in employee health and create a more supportive work environment, it would be better for the culture. So, the two major factors that are leading to this are workload and blurred work life boundaries. As employees gain tenure, managing stress actually becomes increasingly challenging because they're trusted more, they're given more responsibilities, more tasks, and stress levels can actually skyrocket. It's the data is really interesting too because in the first couple of years, employees receive more support and well-being offerings through the onboarding stages and have a stronger connection between their purpose and work. So it's really crucial for organizations to recognize the impact of workload and boundaries on burnout. So providing ongoing support development and creating well-being initiatives are essential as employees progress in their careers. Back to you, Anthony.
Look, I need you to put in the chat work-life balance because that's what we're going to talk about today or right now. Okay. I know it's definitely an experience that people feel in general, but more work. Everyone in general is experiencing increased workloads, right? And so my first question is, the increased workload can lead to burnout, and burnout can lead to mental health breaks. Rainer, when you're thinking about this, how do you consult organizations as it relates to how can organizations put guardrails into place to make sure that diverse employees aren't disproportionately affected by increased workloads? Because it feels like there's just more being expected, just in general.
Yeah, this is a really interesting question and actually somewhat new for me. So with all of y'all, like I'm exploring a lot of this new territory by synthesizing previous experiences. I'm going to speak to two different issues separately, Anthony, and then I'll attempt to put them together. The first thing is, whenever I'm consulting with an organization, I like to really take a whole systems approach and a whole systems analysis. So what do I mean by that? I look at the inner and the outer components of the organization. What are the prevailing mindsets in the leaders, in the culture, and then what are the systems that they have in place and the protocols and procedures that they take on. And then from there, what I ask is, how is that affecting employees? So I'll give you an example. Years ago, when I was working with a Fortune 100 organization, and this has not that much to do with diversity yet, but people were spending 6 to 8 hours a day on things that could have taken 1 to 2 hours. So then imagine how that is then spilling over into the rest of their life. And by the way, I'm not exaggerating. When we have more time, if you want to ask me offline, I'm happy to tell you how that works. Now, when we look at the question of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you think systemically in a different way, you think about the amount of work that one already has in the modern workplace, which again, that's a whole conversation by itself. You then add things like systemic inequity, or however you want to language that, to the equation. And the work that already would have been there for any given employee, especially if there are unconscious biases within individuals, within managers, within leaders in the organization, that can simply compound, right? A lot of times what happens with DEI issues is there's a microaggression, there's a misunderstanding, there's a failure to harmonize correctly in the workplace. And that just takes what was already there, which could already be said to be a lot to handle here in 2023. And it can exacerbate that stress 4x. So then you do the math, you do the science, and you recognize, well, how does that multiply in terms of organizational outcomes? So Anthony, that's my initial answer to this question, right? Which is, are there ways to mitigate that? Absolutely. There are preventative measures. I know that we're going to be talking about certain organizational health solutions. I think those can start to give HR practitioners an initial view of how to intervene in such a way where we're doing less putting out of fires and we're helping sort of treat the illness before they occur. But I think most importantly, there's a mindset shift that's going to really need to happen. And I'm happy to take as long as we need to have that conversation. But that's my main point on how we keep work-life balance manageable, especially in the context of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Look, there's been some comments in there saying, forget work-life balance. Let's call it work-life harmony, right? Let's enhance that terminology. But that mindset shift is absolutely instrumental, right? Let's make it easier, not harder, and also take those different dimensions into consideration. For you, Chris, there's so many, blurred white work-life balances that's going to be required from like a total rewards perspective. How can organizations really use that in order to kind of not solve this issue, but help as it relates to focusing on minimizing burnout?
Absolutely. So I think that for me, the main thing is, going back to the title of this whole thing, is meeting the employees where they are, right? Not everybody manifests their stress in the exact same way, right? Some people may get flustered and you can see it in their faces, whereas some may be irritable. So I think that's the first component, is actually getting insight into your employees and knowing exactly how their stress levels may manifest themselves. And then I think the other approach, or the other thing that I want to call out, is that thinking about well-being from a holistic standpoint. a lot of times when executives hear wellness or well-being, they think, oh, physical wellness, but that's not only the case, right? There's mental wellness, there's emotional wellness, there's social wellness and well-being. So it's like there's all these different holistic components of well-being that you can kind of implement, right? Sometimes stress and burnout is related to things that are also happening outside of the work. There's that work-life harmony again coming into the picture, right? Where you're stressing about finances outside of the home, so it's pulling your attention away from work, and then that's causing you stress because now you're not doing as well, and then that's where that blurred line happens. So there are things that you can do that may not actually be involved with the organization, but also how can you support your employees wherever they are in their life's journey. So I think that taking that holistic approach to well-being is very critical.
Yeah, and it requires employers to really understand the needs of their employees. They have to know it. They have to know it in order to even meet them at that place.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for that. If you leaned into that, put it in the chat. Meet employees where they are. Meet me where I'm at. Yes. All right. I'm going to bring Nella to debrief us on the next slide on inclusion.
Okay. So in addition to burnout and stress, the level of inclusion within an organization significantly impacts well-being. Creating a psychologically safe environment is vital. Surveys should gauge employees' perception of safety from bullying, harassment, and discrimination based on factors such as age, gender, or sexual orientation. Ask yourselves, are employees comfortable being themselves at work? Organizations must foster an inclusive environment where all employees feel safe, valued, and free from discrimination. It's important to address disparities and inclusions among different groups. For example, women often report feeling less included than men. Prioritizing inclusion and psychological safety are crucial for employee well being and creating a positive organizational culture. So, by promoting belonging and addressing gaps in inclusivity, organizations can create an environment where everyone thrives.
I've been waiting for this one because when you think about psychological safety, there's a particular role that has a great amount of impact to that, and that's your leader. That's who you report to. So with that, Rainer, I just have to ask, what role does leadership play in fostering an inclusive and psychologically safe environment?
How am I supposed to compress a dissertation into 2 minutes?
You're up for the challenge.
I'm up for the challenge. So leadership is everything. Like, I'm going to be completely honest. I'm going to go into psychological safety really quickly and just give one quick illustration of how that affects people in the workplace in terms of burnout based on my experience, coaching executives, and then I'll come back to the leadership question. I once coached an executive director who at the time, before she held this position, even working with people at the same level as her, was not able to say no to requests to, can you do this, can you do that? Sometimes it's the people who are the most capable in our organizations, our top talent, as we might call it, who are the most prone for issues of burnout, attrition, and things like that. And oftentimes it's not because the other person is racist or sexist or anything like that. It's because there's something in the way that they have already walked into the workplace where, for example, they might be afraid to say no. And so part of what I think psychological safety entails, and this does go into leadership, is do we have the awareness as leaders to understand and look at systems? So to me, it's not so much about, I think the DEI conversation for leadership needs to go beyond, am I racist? Am I sexist? And it's really being able to take a more impartial look at the systems that might cause somebody like, people I've worked with to walk in, brilliant, talented, doesn't know how to say no. A person who is conscious of that would have the ability to essentially coach that employee and say, hey, I'm noticing this is going on. I want you to know that you don't have to say yes to everything. So I just want everyone to take that in for a moment, take a breath, and feel into, what would happen for that person just to hear that? in the workplace, right? We all walk in with our cultural histories, our bodies, our brains are wired in certain ways. Understanding inclusion and leadership and conscious leadership allows us to adjust for these things in ways that are actually not nearly, I know Christopher is going to be talking about total rewards. These things are highly cost-saving interventions. So what I'm trying to say here overall is, people's lives in the workplace, they're often not run by their conscious intentions. They're often run by their unconscious beliefs or things that they're not aware of. So if we can increase our capacity for consciousness and awareness, honestly, we can be spending a lot less money actually, on things that we used to do to sort of put band-aids over wounds or solutions, and we can actually address problems at the root, so that not only do we better the bottom line, but the people who are with us, not only do they stay longer, it's not just about that, they're happier, there's meaning, they feel like they can contribute, they have better careers. Like, who doesn't want that kind of story?
Yeah, absolutely. And just everything you said, I there's literally nothing that I could have said better than what Raina just said. But I would just add one additional component too. I think it was on the slide, but age is a big thing too, especially as we were looking at the generational cohort differences as Gen Z coming into the workforce, right? That there are different needs that each of these cohorts are needing, and we need to meet them where they are again. Especially when it comes to inclusivity, especially around mental health too, because, whereas that negative stigma around mental health before of like, oh my gosh, I'm talking to a therapist, like, whoa, what's going on with you? But it's like, that's not always the case. You need to talk to a therapist ongoing and not just when there's a crisis happening, right? And I think Gen Z is actually a good cohort that shows that and exhibits that more, because, you can be in a conversation. It's like, well, my therapist said, I don't need to have this conversation today. And they'll tell you real quick. So it's like, you need to be mindful of that. And especially as companies and organizations are implementing different rewards strategies, it's like you have to meet those employees where they are, whether that's ethnicity, gender, or generational age differences as well.
There's so many things that we've been talking about, right? I mean, we talk about all these things, but there's a central theme. It is meet employees where they are, know them, and surround them with the right support, and in that aspect, and meeting them where they are. So we're going to switch gears just for a second. Thank you, Rainer. Thank you, Chris. I told you Nella is my co-host, so she's going to stay right here with me. And we're going to dedicate the next few minutes as it relates to talking about cutting edge solutions connected to being able to meet people where they are. Like, how do corporations get a chance to be able to do that? And so I've asked some of our vendors, to some of our providers, to actually come up and talk more about their solutions on how you can do just that. So I am really proud to be able to bring up Callie. Callie is a representative from Wanna Do. What you wanna do, that is their name, is click the link. But they have an awesome platform that allows employers to really have insights into what's going on, what are employees' needs. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and show a little quick video, and then Callie will talk more about that cutting edge solution.
Wanna-Do wasn't built for the average employer. Wanna-Do was built for the employee-centric employer. The one who understands that creating a great place to work creates better outcomes and higher profit margins. The one who is driven to fix problems, not just fixate on them. Research shows that very few companies are truly employee-centric. The choice is yours.
Short and sweet.
Yeah.
Callie, you've heard about the themes that our panelists were talking about in meeting employees where they are. How does Wanna Do help employers to be able to do just that?
Yeah, it's important to have a pulse on organizational health. I also have a psych background. I came from doing HR in the mental health space before Wanna Do. And my favorite thing that I gathered from both of those experiences is it's all a continuum, right? And so it's not enough to know what the climate was like 5 years ago or even 6 months ago. You have to have a constant pulse on what's going on with your people in the here and now to be able to have an impact and drive change to support them in what's happening currently.
Can you kind of share what makes Wanna Do different and how employers
Yeah.
will be able to use it? What makes it stand out against any other type of solution that's out there?
Appreciate that. So we focus on the interconnectivity between what's going on in the company, our own personal health, and our own personal finance, and how those things are constantly in motion and impacted by one another. So we create a great place to level up communication across the organization. While employees are in the platform on a de identified basis, we understand them better and personalize their own experience. So we are able to help support what they specifically need as a person, as well as what that company sees overall. One of my favorite stats that Nella shared was that 86.7% feel like they're not discriminated against in the workplace. Well, what about that 13%? It's not okay to say, okay, the majority of our people are doing okay. We need to be able to personalize that experience to hit those things that each individual is struggling with to bring everybody up.
And that's the thing that I absolutely love, being able to bring that personalized data where you can make sure that no one is missed. All right. So we will provide the link so that if you want to know more about Wanna Do in this platform and providing its insights, you'll be able to do that. And again, what you wanna do is click the link. Thank you so much, Callie.
Thank you.
All right. Now it still continues, right? I actually have another representative from Fountain Health on the line with us. His name is Paul Flowers. And hold on, I got you sent me the deck. I'm gonna go ahead and bring it up. And while I do that, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure thing. First and foremost, thank you, Anthony, and the entire HR certified team for hosting this event, for all the registrants, for everyone that's taken the time out of their day to show up. My name is Paul Howard Flowers Jr., and I'm recently transitioning over to Fountain Health Insurance as I found a very mission oriented and mission driven organization that was doing something amazingly different and better than I'd seen in my years in the industry. Been in the insurance industry now 17 years, from legal to life to health to group. Touched just a little bit of everything, a little bit of PNC, but really found a calling on the health and group side. So I got a call for really what turned out to be a once in a lifetime opportunity here with Fountain Health Insurance. And I couldn't be more excited just to share a little bit about it with you all today.
All right. Well, I have you up. If won't you tell us about what makes Fountain Health different, and how does that fit into this discussion that we're having?
Sure thing. Beautiful. So I'll talk about that first, and I'll give you the next slide cue, so to speak, where what we've seen, and you know what, this, I like the interactive piece of it. I'm kind of one of those call and response folks. I grew up in the Baptist church, so I just want to ask some questions to the audience, to the listeners, and if you all can just simply pop in the chat and say I have, right, if something that I'm going to say resonates with you, then that would be just really, really helpful for a visual representation of why what we do is so important. So if you've had anyone in your life, mother, sister, brother, cousin, professional colleague, etc., that has experienced a heart attack, right? Put I have in the chat. Cancer. Put I have in the chat. Stroke. Put I have in the chat. Okay. Dementia. Put I have in the chat. Right. Lastly, an aneurysm. Or no, you know what? Diabetes in the family. And put I have in the chat. So, I'm seeing the chat kind of blowing up over here on the right hand side. And with that, I want to kind of transition into who this was founded by, because again, it's not just myself, it's not just my regional partners, but it's really the brains that came behind us. So if you would, Anthony, next slide.
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh.
That's right, it's going to get there.
Yeah.
But I know that.
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness. When I see how the chat has blown up with those questions, with the answers to those
Yeah.
questions. Oh my goodness.
Right. So realistically speaking, 7 of the top 10 causes of death in America are absolutely preventable, excuse me. And this is where Fountain Health actually steps in and makes a difference, right? Your normal health carriers, again, do phenomenal at taking care of what we call the back end stuff, like the sick care type of things. And the individuals that started our company, Tony Robbins, Peter Diamandis, Dr. Bill Kapp, Dr. Robert Hariri, some names that, again, if you Google them all, you'll see a bunch of notable achievements, pages long, got together and realized that not only should the elite type of preventative services be available to those that can afford it, they wanted to democratize it and make it available to everyone. Thus, Fountain Health was born. So what we did was actually take a look at the data, right? And you can go to that next slide. I believe it's got some data points on it. Let's see how technology handles this one. What we did was look at the data and realize that by looking at an individual in a proactive sense, again, many of our HR professionals here all understand the health plans that they have in place. And truly, if you really understand them, you'll note that they're all pretty much reactive. Well, we realize that well care or wellness inside of a health insurance plan, as opposed to on top of it or layered beside it, makes an entire difference in both cost and utilization. And what we've seen from the data in our Fountain Health centers is that, and again, I'm not going to go through all of this for the sake of time, but if you can see anything, you'll notice that there are lots of people on the left-hand side that have gone through the services that Fountain Health and Fountain Life offer. And from that, when they're able to find out that there are issues going on in their body prior to, right? So everybody in the chat, I guarantee, and I'm going to say this with a pretty much, like I'll say 99% confidence, I guarantee that none of the individuals that that have had those cancer, stroke, dementia, diabetes diagnosis woke up one day and said, hey, I think I want to have that, right? They likely had some type of symptom pop up with them, to at which point alerted them to then go and seek care. Well, that's the thing about our society and our healthcare, is that it's symptomatic driven. Fountain Health, we say, you know what, let's find out what's going on in the body before the symptoms show up. And that's what makes us different and better. That's what makes us quite literally life-changing and life-saving technology. I'll share just one story, and then the last slide, I believe, is the contact information for myself, where had a gentleman testing out one of our diagnostic centers in Nevada, 41 years young, perfect physical shape. He's an avid runner. He just did a 10K right before. Well, as a favor, again, checking out the new diagnostic center, he went and actually had our services provided to him through that diagnostic center. Well, it was an emergency situation that he didn't realize was there, because he had an 80% plaque blockage in his right ascending artery. 80%, okay, plaque. What that says is that had he gone on the run that he was planned for 2 weeks later, his wife and 2 children would have likely been seeing him on the other side of an emergency room visit if he made it, as opposed to a recovery table that was planned. All right, so that's just the beauty of having proactive attitude towards health. Would love to talk more about this again, maybe another session, something to that effect. But again, for the sake of time, that last slide, I believe Anthony has some contact information on there. For those that are able to, if you've got your phone with you, please connect with me on LinkedIn. You can bring it out, do the little scanny QR code, and it'll bring you up to a page where you can either select time with me, get some more insight on Fountain, and or connect with me on LinkedIn, which I would love to stay connected with each and every one of you. If you're on a device and maybe you can't scan it because you're using the scanner, go ahead and just go to www.paul.health, and it'll take you to that same page so that we can absolutely stay connected. And again, Anthony, thank you so very much.
Paul, it gave me goosebumps to see how many people are impacted or know of someone's impacted by these type of ailments. I mean, even for me, my grandmother passed away of cancer, and even though she was in the hospital for numerous months, the impact that it had to everyone within the family, including myself, triggered a lot of those things. And just wondered like if we were able to get ahead of it. There was a lot of it that's on the end of it. So thank you all who were vulnerable in sharing in the chat, but it definitely was just goosebumps with just seeing that. Thank you for that, Asia. I'm sorry, not Paul.
I'll be all of the above. Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. So with that, We have one more aspect that we want to be able to share with you guys, because again, it's more than just about talking about it. The underarching theme here is around prevention and being proactive, because if mental breaks are happening, it's too late. What can we do to avoid it from the in the first place? So I brought Nella back on from McLean to talk about our last cutting edge proactive solution as it pertains to well-being programs. I'm going to go ahead and show this real quick. And well, in the meantime, you mind kicking us off while I go ahead and share my screen. Hold on one second.
Yeah,
Almost there.
sure thing. So earlier, I had highlighted the impact that prioritizing employee well-being has on the bottom line. So investing in well-being programs from a holistic standpoint can yield a 600% ROI, because you're essentially reducing medical costs by $3.27 and absenteeism costs by $2.73. So at the end of the day, it's a smart financial decision. And interesting enough, the organizations that prioritize employee needs during the COVID pandemic experienced higher overall performance and workforce productivity. So, in my portion today, I'll be talking about the situation, some of the complications that get in the way, and then I'll pass it along to Anthony so he can talk about some of the solutions that we see. So, Anthony, if you can go into the complications slide.
Yep.
All right. So while well-being obviously has an impact on the bottom line, as we've discussed and you've seen in the presentation today, many organizations lack a comprehensive strategy and alignment between their senior executives and employees. Well-being often ranks lower on executives' priority list, but is still a top concern for employees. So this misalignment hinders progress. And furthermore, organizations are failing to track the impact of well-being programs for the overall performance, and it makes it difficult to tell a story and measure the financial benefits. So again, a holistic well-being program extends beyond just physical health. Like Chris was mentioning, it encompasses mental health, work-life balance, personal development, and creating a positive, inclusive organizational culture.
I'm gonna pause you just for a second. If you lean into that, I need you to put well-being in the chat. Well-being. Go ahead, Nella.
Okay, and then for the next slide, let's talk about some practical solutions. So many well-being programs fail to meet their full potential. And so I want you to think about this. 25% of employees believe that the organization's programs meet their needs. Only 25%. Child care coverage is a major concern, but yet only 35% have access to it. And while mental well-being programs are offered by 96% of employers, like good job, only 16% of employees feel supported by them. So again, meeting your employees where they're at. So you can focus potentially on these three areas and have huge, huge impacts. So again, for the next two slides, I just want to cover that this is a holistic way to really target employee well-being. We are living in a dynamic landscape. Organizations, if they want to remain competitive, have to embrace holistic well-being and integrate it in all aspects of their organization through operations, culture, leadership competencies, as well as some best practices. It's definitely a mindset shift from going from just physical health to encompassing all of these different dimensions. One of the key things that you mentioned, Anthony, was how important leaders are to making this transition. And so,
Yes.
one of the key things that I want to leave you with before I pass it along to Anthony is that managers are going to be vital to see this through. Only 30% of employees feel comfortable discussing mental health with their managers. So, we definitely have to remove the stigma and provide training to these individuals so they can address this and really model healthy behaviors. One thing is to have that vision and mission and all of that verbiage, but if you're not really acting it out and providing a safe environment, people will not take advantage of the tools that are offered. And so, with that, Anthony, yeah, I'm curious to see what you came up with as some practical solutions.
Yeah, and we will also provide the link so with to McLean and Company, so that if you need assistance with building a well-being program, you can connect directly as well. Thank you, Nella. All right, so there, I want to go ahead and share my screen. There are some other aspects that may be very relatable to you that definitely can connect to um, a lot of the things that we talked about today. And one of them is making sure that in order to create this inclusive environment, that people understand where they fit into the bigger picture of things. That next gen, multi gen, like they want to know how they fit into the bigger wheelhouse, right? Everybody must be facing the right direction, and also where their role fits into play. The next thing, as we talked about, leadership is so important that you have people, leaders in place that treat employees with dignity and respect and as professionals. And those things that go into increasing that leadership is providing those leaders with training to anybody that supervises people. People, that you give your frontline leaders all of the resources that they need to engage. They're the ones with the highest amount of impact towards inclusivity, ensuring and that also like that as leaders and not managers, that you're seen as a human being, right? You smile, you laugh, you share positive stories, and that you're enthusiastic about your work. This is so important. Companies are very quick to slap values on the wall and on the website, but the reality is, do the executive team, the people that's in the about page, exemplify the behaviors that are listed there? Because guess what? However, the executives are going to be, that's the way that their leaders are going to be, and that's the way the employees are going to be, and that determines the culture. Establish and live by those values, setting examples. The how aspect is so important. Pay them well, pay them fairly, ensuring that there's a good mix. We talked with Chris as it relates to total rewards and being able to meet people where they are and be transparent about how what your compensation philosophy is, and if there's mistakes, fix it. And then last but not least is reward and recognize employees often. Re-recruit them, reward them openly, create an environment where people are appreciated for who they are, and also what they do. I'm gonna bring the whole entire panel in on this last slide here. Where is everyone? Hey y'all! Oh my goodness! Like I can't believe that we got 2 minutes left. Okay. Um, where is that last slide? Hold on. Okay, there we go. Um, there, there are a lot of ways in order to address burnout, and I think that the number one thing that came out of this is meet employees where they are. So I'm going to do a quick round robin for some final thoughts and parting thoughts. Paul, why don't I begin with you?
Parting thoughts. Well, first and foremost, again, start everything out with gratitude. I just spoke on a panel this morning physically, so I had to run over here to make sure we were all set up for this. And what I noticed in being in that room full of leaders is that there is a common desire to actually create an environment that is a comfortable environment, like build a better fishbowl type of mentality, where it's actually for the employee. I know we've all worked in places that may not have been the best, right? You've seen some toxic environments, and sometimes people invest in the person, but not change the environment, right? Which is like taking a fish and making sure that he's nice and well. And I use again, but I'm not calling anybody animals, okay? So please don't. I know we're HR here, uh, but it's like taking a fish, making sure it's well, and then putting it right back into the same fish bowl that it gathered the disease from in the first place, right? It doesn't necessarily work. So takeaway point I'd say would be to invest in your people, find out what they want first. Don't just do this whole ivory tower mentality. Get in there, boots on the ground, ERGs, whatever you need to do to hear from the people, learn what it is that they want and need in order to make a better environment for them, and then do the work, right? Take the steps, put the actions in place, spend the money, okay? to actually make sure that
In the
people
right
have
way.
what they thank you very much, in the right way, to make sure that people have what they need, to make sure that their overall well-being is taken care of, not just getting them a paycheck.
Thanks, Paul. Chris, 30 seconds or less.
I would say, going back to what I said earlier, right? This whole conversation is meeting employees in the modern workforce where they are. So I think just understanding your employees, understanding what matters to them, what are their motivations, what does bringing their whole and true self to work really mean, and how do you meet them at that point?
Yep. Thanks, Chris. Rainer.
I was on mute. Organizations are not machines, or at least organizations that deeply respect their people are not machines. They're complex living systems. So what I offer to folks is, what does it actually take? There's something about, if you want to meet your employees where they're at, you have to be able to contact your deep humanity. And I submit that contacting that deep humanity is a tougher job than it might seem at times. So what I would say too is strategies. Give me strategies all day, and also how are you showing up as a person? How are you connected to everything? The thing is, it's 2023. Like, give us 4 more years and people are going to realize this is an interconnected world. We can't just cut ourselves up, isolate this from that, and expect the results that we really want. So how do we look holistically? And from my end, how do we think and live deeply in such a way that we can really meet the people we're serving and working with, and not just talking about that term as HR people?
Thank you. Callie?
Yeah, I can't echo everything strong enough that everyone has said, but it really has to become a ground level effort, right? You have to make sure that your leadership understands why you're doing this and that they can help you champion it in the right way. So whatever it is that you're doing to try to meet people where you're at, you have to bring that leadership component into it. You have to give them specific resources on how to champion it, and you have to follow through and make sure that they're following through. And that's a crucial component that we sometimes forget about.
Yep. Nella?
So 3 key things when implementing a well-being program, I would say, is essential to not dismiss low uptake as a sign of failure. It may just be that you have to increase awareness to better align those initiatives with employees. Another point would be a well-being program can only be effective if employees feel comfortable accessing the available programs and policies. And the third thing would be there are many benefits to the well-being program, but it's important to shift your mindset and not necessarily look for ROI immediately. It's going to be a long-term play for those employee assistance programs. So I enjoyed the conversation today. I hope that the research that I was able to provide through McLean and Company has empowered you with some practical insights. This has been an immensely rewarding conversation. So please feel free to connect with me, Nella Brown, on LinkedIn, and feel free to check McLean and Company's website for the latest research on burnout.
If you're still here and this resonate with you, put into the chat, meet me where I'm at. Also, the true hack, again, is meeting employees where they are. Thank you again for your support, and we'll see you for our next LinkedIn Live event. Thanks, everyone, for attending. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.